Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hear the Cannons. I am your host, Colin Hallboom, joined by a number of the talented writers we have over at BucsGameday, which is Sports Illustrated's only website dedicated specifically to covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We are very excited. Today is a big day because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like many teams around the league, all teams, I believe, have kicked off their training camp for 2024. There's lots of new faces and lots of stories and things to follow, and we have got boots on the ground. We got two gentlemen right here for this podcast, JC Allen and River Wells, who were there today, who saw it all firsthand. So we're going to get tons of valuable insight from those guys. But before we get into that, I have to implore you to please make sure you are subscribed on YouTube to the channel. We're growing real fast. We've had players on. We're going to have coaches on. We got the plugs. And so make sure you're growing with us as we grow. Now, that being said, gentlemen, it was hot, I imagine, out there. How hot was it, boys?
It was hot. It was hot. And it's going to get worse, too. So that's fun. Yeah.
It was very hot. And they took down the giant flag, which everyone, the players know, everyone, media knows. You look at the flag. If it's moving, you're in for a solid day. If it's not moving, it's going to be closer to where the devil lives. There was some cloud cover at one point, which was nice, but it lasted very shortly.
Right. Well, either way, it's football, right? So you can't be complaining. How about that?
No.
Yes. And anyway, the biggest news, in case you, live under a rock or work a job during the day, you may not have heard. Tristan Wirfs, not only was he in attendance, but he participated fully. JC, can you let us know, because and were you surprised?
I was surprised. I actually had someone tell me with the organization that they expected him to maybe take part of individual drills, maybe some stuff like that, but they expected him not to take part in any team drills at all. And surprise, 11-on-11s came out, and Tristan Wirfs had his helmet on. Was out there with the rest of the group. I'm not sure if it was something like, I'm out here, I'm sweaty, I'm hot already. Screw it. Let's just get out there with the boys. I want to play football. I'm sure his agents advised him against it, considering what happened 2 years ago on the first day of training camp. We won't bring that up, but yeah, definitely surprised to see it. Todd Bowles says he wasn't surprised to see it. I don't know how much that's, the conversation that they had. But yeah, he was out there. It looks sharp. It looks like Tristan Wirfs. So we'll see if that continues when pads come on Monday. But for the time being, it looks like he's, as Todd Bowles said in our article up on BucsGameday. We've got 9 articles up. Go check those out just today alone. But he's rolling. He's ready to roll. So it doesn't look like there's going to be limitations when pad comes on too.
That'd be pretty cruel if then he shelves the pads after giving us a little teaser. Okay, River, I'm going to throw this to you. Does this mean Wirfs, you think, is willing to play on that final year of his deal? I mean, Christian Darrisaw just signed a big contract. Word came out today that Trent Williams, the preeminent number 1 tackle in football, is holding out, it appears, for a new deal himself. Are the Bucs hurting themselves by not just ponying up right now?
I think the Williams news is particularly interesting because, as you mentioned, he's holding out. He's not holding in. He's not showing up. And if Trent Williams gets paid a lot of money, then, of course, Tristan Wirfs' agent, in turn, will want to either match or exceed that. So not great to come out today, especially given for the 49ers, with them and Ayuk, but for the Bucs, given, Wirfs' a new contract. But hard to say. And JC mentioned it, Todd Bowles mentioned it. A lot of people mentioned that Tristan Wirfs loves playing football. So I think that's probably a big reason why he's out there. But once we get into pads and we see pads come on, it would be interesting to see him still participate because the chance of injury from there skyrockets. I don't know if it's the smartest move, but Jason Light's already taken care of a lot of players this offseason and given them their due. So giving one more his due might be, a lot, but Mike Evans said it himself today. Tristan might be the team's best player. And when you have a player like that, you tend to try and take care of them as soon as you can. So looming contracts outside the league, non-prevailing, I think it's definitely going to be a big priority.
I mean, it's not like he's got to fork over the money today, so I don't necessarily
50-year option and then franchise tag if need be. Hopefully it will never come to that, but you have about 2 years there in the pocket if you need it. So,
and the Bucs have done that too with all their. I mean, you look at, again, none of them have been players on a 5th-year option, but Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans this past year, Antoine Winfield Jr. this past year, Levante to a lesser extent, he's on 1-to-1 year deals. They've made all these guys play out their final year of their deal. So I think it will be interesting, as River said, the timing of it with Trent Williams. Trent Williams, I think, is only making $23 million a year. He's locked up for the next 2 years, but do they bump him up? And if they bump him up, I think Wirfs is probably looking at 29-30 right now. If they bump him up prior to that and he's getting 29, Wirfs is going to reset the market. Does that bring his total up higher too? So
there's incentive to get it done sooner than later, for sure, especially given that news. Yeah.
It's obviously in their plans. I think, it's easier for me to say I get it, but let's go. Hand the man his money and let's move along. That being said, though, some of the comments today by guys like Antoine Winfield and Mike Evans, Bowles as well, all confirmed that he looked like he didn't miss a beat. Tristan Wirfs, which is what you expect. He's been working, and I mean, Mike Evans' comments were especially complimentary when he said, I don't talk to him about his contract. JC, it was your question, I believe, actually. You asked Evans this. Said, I don't talk about his contract. Haven't really talked to him about it. We talk a lot, though. He's one of our best players, if not the best player we have. Yep. We need him bad. Hopefully we get that right. I like those comments from Mike. I thought that was a strong stance to take, support of his guy. Didn't throw his front office under the bus or anything, even though he could have because he's got his bag now. But just speaks to how the players value. I mean, Mike Evans just said he might be our best player. That's a pretty cool comment. Caleb, what do you think of that? Yeah.
I mean, arguably he is. Without Tristan Wirfs there at left tackle, who are you going to have, blocking the blind side there for whether it's Baker, or, Tom or whoever it was before then. So it's going to get done. Ultimately, we know it's going to get done. We know that this front office likes to take care of their own, especially guys that they've drafted. So Tristan Wirfs fits that mold. He does love ball. We all know he loves ball. So that's probably why he was out there today. I don't think he's got any inkling of thought in his mind that, hey, I'm going to get hurt or this, that, or the other. I think he knows how to take care of his body, knows when he can push it to 100% when he doesn't need to. So you can trust a veteran like Tristan Wirfs on the offensive line to be able to handle, hey, I'm still waiting on this contract I'm holding in, but yet I'm still going to come out here and participate in whatever way that I can. It also goes to a leadership perspective, right? So you see a guy who is well deserving of a massive contract, and you expect him maybe not to participate, and then he comes out there and participates. From a teammate perspective, how's that look? To me, that says, who cares? He doesn't care about the money, although he does want to get paid. He cares more about this team and where we are going and our goals for where we want to be at the end of the season. He values that way more than any sort of money is going to get paid. So it goes a lot further than Tristan Wirfs, the player. It goes into Tristan Wirfs, the man, and what he's doing just exemplifies the type of player that Jason Licht and company want in that locker room, and they're going to get a deal done. I don't think it's something to stress about, and he's going to be willing to play until he does get that contract, and the Bucs will give it to him.
Speaking of Tristan Wirfs,
and it sets a good example too. I was just going to say, it sets a good example too for guys who are coming up in contract years next year. You look at the guys: Luke Gedeke, K. Dotton, Rashad White, Zion McCollum, Jake Camarda, Logan Hall. Those are key players that you have that are coming up, into the final year of their deal. And whether you're thinking of, I need a new contract or not, you'll see someone like Tristan Wirfs. What he's doing kind of makes you think that, hey, I'm not above this team if he's going to do it.
Now, I can't gloss over this topic, okay? So while we're talking Tristan Wirfs, I have to bring this up. 85, boys? 85? Like, the NFL Top 100 came out, and I just want to, send out a public service announcement to every NFL player who voted. What are you watching? Well, you're obviously not lined up against Tristan Wirfs as a defensive end on either side of the line over the past few years. Did they not allow edge rushers to vote? Did they not allow Buccaneers players to vote? How on earth is Tristan Wirfs 85? I was riled up about this right away. You guys were like, chill, man. It's player voted. I was like, I don't care. I'm not happy about it. Can someone like am I justified with these emotions? Am I being ridiculous? Like someone help
Wirfs
me.
definitely is a higher than 85. Yeah, for sure. And again, we talked about this, Colin, and then I believe one of our commenters said this as well. Top 3 tackle at left or right. I think Tristan Wirfs absolutely is. And the order of which, we talked about Trent Williams probably number 1, but the order afterward is splitting hairs. I think Wirfs is one of the most important pieces to any NFL team, much less the Buccaneers. And where would you put the other 2 if you're going to put Wirfs at 85? So yeah, it's voted by friends. It's voted by teammates, players, gassing up their boys. But you're correct. I think if you are a top tackle in the NFL, and the tackle is one of the most important positions that you can play in the NFL, given how good edge rushers and everybody else is just becoming recently, you're probably inside the top 30 at least. And, you can go higher from there, I think, depending on everyone else. But it's such an important, crucial position. Tristan Wirfs is absolutely one of the best players in the National Football League.
I mean, we all know, right, too, at the same time that these lists, like, they're lists. Like, these guys, like, any list that comes out, you can kind of just take it for what it's worth, its content, this,
Lists
that, or the
are
other. Yeah, they're fun. It's that time of the year where we're throwing out these lists. They're fun. The NFL Top 100, it's all these guys' buddies that are voting for them, listing them higher than other guys. But then, the question comes, how can you think of all these other players that are better than Tristan Wirfs, which is understandable, but Aaron Rodgers played all of 4 seconds and made the list last season. So it's
Levante David at 99 too, which is probably higher than that.
Yeah, it is what it is. You take it for what it's worth.
Whether sorry, go ahead, JC.
I was gonna say they're paying attention to guys who are who are the big marquee teams, right? And who's going to the Pro Bowl and who's going to the All Pro. So like that. Tristan did struggle a little bit last year. It wasn't his best season, but that was the transition. For me, I feel like, okay, should he have been higher? Yeah. But there's about 1,300 players in the NFL. He's one of the top 100. Picking hairs where he's at. I think he's.
Yeah, can you really complain at that point?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I think
yes, you can. I think he should have been higher, but still, he deserved to be on that list. He was on that list. Placement, whatever.
All right, you want my conspiracy theory here, gentlemen? Jason Light has been known to play chess while others are playing checkers, correct? What if he pulled some strings over at the network, right? He knows the higher up, or the lower, I should say, Tristan Wirfs is on that list, a little more leverage he's got in these ongoing negotiations behind the scenes. Just saying. We
wanted to give you $30 million, but you're 85 on the list. We really
this
can't.
Is advanced. This is advanced stuff. They don't want you to know this.
Yeah.
No,
they don't.
Yeah, I know we'd help ourselves by opening up more cap space for this season, but no.
Yeah. There's gonna be a text coming in any minute telling us to shut this down. We can't keep going over this.
Yeah. Speaking of another guy who is.
I gotta go.
Speaking of another Buccaneer who was inexplicably left off the NFL's top 100 list, or in this case, left off so far, and that's Randy Gregory.
That's true.
Making a appearance.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, I'm gonna throw this one to Caleb first. First of all, it seems like Bulls today. Before I throw it to Caleb, JC, first off, you do a good job. I think you're scoring some points with Bulls because he's getting so sick of the relentless questions, which should be asked. They need to be asked. I actually like that. The media is applying pressure because it feels like we get closer to, him being on the brink of an explosion and some kind of actual information needing to be released. But JC, you always handle yourself so well in there. I'm always impressed by your questions. But why haven't we cut bait with this guy already? I say we being the Buccaneers. What are they holding on to? Why the lack of clarity on this? Why does it need to be hush hush top secret? Bowles is acting like he doesn't even know where he is. So then why is he on the team? Is this not creating more of a distraction than is worth at this point? Caleb, I'll throw to you first.
We've talked about this tirelessly. I feel like where is he? He's getting fined this amount of money. He's this, that, or the other. Nobody knows. Nobody's in contact with him. He's got this lawsuit going on with the Denver Broncos, this, that, and the other. And we don't ever get a clear answer. So, at this point, it seems like the coaching staff, obviously Todd Bowles, I listened to, his interview earlier today, and it just seems like he's frustrated by the media asking him about it. And he keeps giving the same answers. Oh, we'll handle that internally, this, that, and the other, and figure it out. So it seems like, although they're frustrated, that they're still wanting him there. They're still wanting Gregory to report, to show up and be a part of this team, which I don't really get. You're trying to maintain this culture of that, that you've kind of built since Arians came into the fold as the head coach, and kind of maintain that into this new era under Baker and Bowles. And you're gonna, just play ring around the rosy with a guy who is known to kind of have some question marks surrounding him when it comes to being able to even just get on the field. So do you really want to put your eggs in that basket, or do you just want to, ride with what you have, what you got, get rid of that distraction and let it go? Personally, that's what I would do to maintain the level of connection that you do have already in that locker room. I don't think it's worth bringing him in at this point. I don't think he's going to bring you all kinds of different production or that ceiling that we once saw Randy Gregory have. So I think I would honestly cut bait with him. I know a lot of Buccaneers fans want to do the same, have him walk off the end of the ship and into Tampa Bay, whatever it may be. That's fine. But you have to make a decision at some point. And when that decision comes, is beyond me, because there could be another guy getting, those reps that is more deserving of it, or, showed up when he was supposed to, that Randy could take away if he does indeed decide to show up.
Yeah. I think when you look at it, like maybe guys like Marquise Watts, Jose Ramirez, Sean Peterson, Dan Grizzleck, I think they're like, oh, please don't show up, right? I don't want you to cut into our reps. But for the most part, the team doesn't care. Like, talk to some of the guys on the team, they don't care. They're like, show up, don't show up. You're going to mess up with our camaraderie, our locker room, our chemistry. He's like, we're moving with or without you, man. I talked to one player, didn't even know he was on the team, didn't even know he was signed. He's like, oh, I didn't even know he was here. So like I think Bowles obviously has some say with roster construction, but again, this is a Jason thing. This is a, cross your T's, dot your I's before you make this move. We'll put him on this reserve list. Funny thing is he's suing the NFL and the Broncos for $500 and some odd $1,000 between the 2 days he's missed at $50,000 a day, which is mandatory fines that's brought through the collective bargaining agreement, not even through the Bucs or anything like that. And $130 some odd dollars he missed during mandatory minicamp. He's already up to half the money he's suing for, that he's suing the Broncos and the NFL for. So again, I kind of touched on this in my podcast.
JC,
right?
how much is he making on his 1-year contract with the Bucs? Because he's
got
to be getting close.
I kind of talked about this because I had my podcast right before. After you're done this, go check that out. But mental health, and I'm not sure that's what it is. $3 million this year, 1.36
1.3 guaranteed, right? Yeah.
Right. But like if it's a mental health thing, like you should still reach out and say, hey, I'm going through some personal things right now. Remember, Levante said he was going through some personal things because Levante has a relationship with him at OTAs. You still need to reach out. You can't just, if any of us were to not show up for 3 days of work and then not show up for 2 days of work and not call our boss, we'd be fired. It's unacceptable. Your boss needs to know what the heck's going on. So if it's a mental thing, then I think obviously you got to take care of that. But if it's an NFL thing, obviously his representation isn't saying anything. His lawyers, his agent, he's been reached out to. There's no communication there. It's just total blackout silence on his end between not just media who's inquiring, but the Bucs organization. At some point, you got to cut bait and let go.
Are you buying that though, JC? Because that is what's being said, that the Buccaneers don't know. But because my thought is this,
there's been no communication with Gregory or his camp with the Buccaneers right now.
Wow. Then I'm all the more shocked that they haven't just cut him loose, because I was going to say that is kind of hard to believe that his representation at the very least would not make contact with the Buccaneers. That's quite bizarre, So I assume this was kind of like the Buccaneers can be mysterious, especially with what they unveiled to the media. thinking back to, the Ryan Jensen injury, for example, we didn't know what was going on for a year, which was to me very frustrating. Like, I don't understand why you couldn't just say, yes, it's a very serious knee injury. We're still unsure. We're trying various treatments. Call it what it is. Like, it was so mysterious. So I don't know why I've got my conspiracy theorist hat on, my tinfoil hat tonight, but
it is a podcast in 2024. So
yeah, thanks. I'm just, we're just hitting our quota. But yeah, I guess if that is truly the case, then that is shocking. But in that case, I'm very surprised that he's still here. So
like I said, there's T's and I's to cross. Obviously, as River mentioned, 1.3 million in guarantees. You don't want to just cut him right away because then you're giving up that 1.3. There's got to be, I'm sure there's probably talks with the league. And there might be a certain time period where a guy's got to be on there, not report and not make communication before you can release him, before you can go after those guarantees. I don't know how much money was paid out front to him. All these certain different little scenarios there that might need to be in play before they can just release him. Right now, he didn't show up. They put him on the reserve list. Bowles said, that's the last question I'm talking about him. We don't have anyone until Levante speaks. There's really no one that we know of that's close to him or even has spoken with him to get kind of ask them. At this point, I think that's more the thing is the financial, the legal on the Bucs side with the league. But I don't expect him to be on this team. Again, Bowles said he was very comfortable with the depth. I actually am very comfortable with the depth. My 53 roster prediction came out today. I have them keeping 6 outside linebackers. And even if Gregory was here, he wouldn't have been one. He hasn't had a ton of production, has had a lot of different things pop up around his career. It was a questionable signing when he was signed in the first place, especially with other players available. Guys like Yannick Ngakwe was still available. There's some other guys who I think could help. I think what's his name? I don't know. There's other outside linebackers, edge players who I think could help more than he could have. So I didn't get it in the beginning. I don't know. It is what it is at this point.
That's some good info there, JC. You're right. There's a lot of financials involved, intricacies, dealing with the contract and ways to get out of it. They are probably in conversations with the league. So I'm glad that you brought that up. The most important thing about that whole conversation we just had about Randy Gregory was, JC, you saying that players really don't care. And it's not somewhere nowhere. Like, it's just not on their agenda at the first day of training camp. And to me, that's a major sign of a mature team with the right pieces in place from a leadership perspective. And, I wrote a piece today and based on a lot of the quotes we heard. And to me, there is just a genuine, not that it's there, but it's genuine belief that this team is a lot further ahead than they were last year from a fitness, physicality perspective, speed. Like, there's a number of different angles you can take it, but I'm just going to hit on some of these quotes from different, like Todd Bowles, for example, said probably the most shape we've came in probably 3 to 4 years. Like, he's not saying that to butter up the media or about his team. He's not trying to he means that when he says that. That's at least my belief. And then, who was next here? Antoine Winfield Jr. had some pretty strong comments. He was saying, yeah, we've got some guys, especially our younger guys. I feel like they fit well in our system, and I feel like we did get faster. We got smarter, and I feel like we've got playmakers all over the field. He talked about Super Bowl aspirations. Those are just a couple of comments there that I thought were telling. And then lastly, Mike Evans. Of all the people who are going to talk along with Levante David, if Mike Evans is saying this, he said, last year we heard all the talk about we lost Tom, we were going to be trash and things like that, but we knew the caliber of players that we had, and this year we're going to be better. I feel like it's already showing. I know it's just day one, but OTAs, it was different than it was the year before, talking about last year. Mike Evans, Todd Bowles, these guys coming out making these comments, I believe that they believe that. And I don't think they're just, waxing poetic. So River, are you buying what they're saying there? Is it too early to tell? Because that kind of got me riled up, right? With my pewter and red blood started pumping.
Yeah, I know it's best shape of their life season, and it has been since probably March. But I promise you, going out there, a lot of these guys do look leaner. and faster. Like KJ Britt mentioned in his press conference, Baker Mayfield, we know from an image a few days ago, but now seeing him in person definitely has slimmed down a little bit. Looks a lot more fit. Mike Evans looks like he's in fantastic shape.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does, and that's the case. And obviously, we've heard about Vita Vea's weight loss journey
all
for
summer,
months at a time. But
he looks great though.
Oh yeah, he does. And it's those little things, and I think obviously it's too early to tell if exactly how that's going to result. And I don't know what the win total plus or minus is on that, but as long as they look fast and they do, and as long as these second-year players on the defense, guys like Yaya Diaby, guys like Kalijah Kancey, they're learning the Todd Bowles defense and they're getting better at it, and they get to play less instinctual and more poised. That's huge, especially for a team this young. The team was very young last year, and a lot of those guys are still young. They're just second-year players who have a lot more experience in defense. And on the offensive side of the ball, too, you've got players like that as well. So still a pretty young unit, and they had to learn a new system, obviously, with Liam Cohen. But I think there's reason to be optimistic there. And I think, like you mentioned, some of this is coach speak, some of this is player speak, but not all of it is. And I think you are seeing some of those things kind of happen, and that we'll hopefully see more of those things as training camp progresses. But I think there's reason to be confident in a young team that has better bearings than it did last year, because that in itself could be a pretty dangerous prospect for some other teams.
That was a goal too by Jason Light and the Todd Bowles, was to get younger, right? After having Tom Brady here and the oldest roster and bringing all these older vets in to try to compete for Super Bowls, they did the opposite flip, the 180, to get this team younger. And if you look at the last 2, 3, even maybe 4 draft classes, it's filled with fast, smart, instinctual, mature players. And we're seeing that on the field. Guys who know how to take care of themselves in the offseason aren't showing up like Cheeseburger Lenny. Guys who, they're putting
never forget. Yeah.
they're putting the work in. They're grinding in the house. They're staying in Tampa to make sure they're training in the heat. We didn't have one guy throw up, one guy have hamstring cramps today, or calf cramps or anything like that. This is a mature group who wants to work hard. Who, Todd Bowles said it in his thing. I don't want guys here to make the team. I want you to make a spot on the team, make a role on the team, and I think the group of players the Bucs have, they don't have any guys who want to just get on and coast. They've got guys who are hungry, guys who are going to put the work in. And with that youth comes speed. And we saw that in droves today, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And it's elevated all the older veterans too. As Mike said, he's out there because they're in the hotel for training camp, which is, I need to figure that out, because you can't go to your family at night or something like that. Or like, I don't know. I got to figure that out. But they're staying at a hotel at night for training camp, throughout training camp. And he's coming in and he said, he saw, I think one of you wrote about this, but Jalen McMillan was working out with some of the younger wide receivers. And he's like, stopped in and he's like, I need some work in this offense too, and ran some plays. And like, so those young guys are pushing these older guys to get in better shape, to get faster, to put that extra work in, which is ultimately only going to help this Bucs team throughout the season, compete at a high level and the highest level they can.
Some of our viewers bringing some energy. We got DJ watching us on YouTube. He said, we don't need Gregory. We got young hunters that's starving and ready to eat. So, JC mentioned some of those options. We've talked about them quite a bit, but we appreciate you chiming in, DJ. Bryce Pat 98 said, best shape of life and ahead of schedule on the injury front. Definitely, it's early. It's day one. It couldn't be earlier, but all arrows are pointing up at this point.
And that's a good thing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And Bud Cannibalist,
quarterback and an undrafted tight end. Only 2 people who are injured. And I talked to Tanner Tallo today. He should be back by next week.
Sorts itself out quickly then. And then Bud Cannibalist says, watching on YouTube as well, Wirfs not holding out, all the more reason to get that deal done, all the money. So yeah, talking about, Wirfs' character, the fact he's out there makes him even more worth paying. Yes, more Wirfs it. But yeah, so folks, if you're not already, make sure you're watching us on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel, turn those notifications on so you know when we go live. And then you don't have to join us halfway through the show. You can be here right from the get-go, hear some awesome conspiracy theories from the host and a whole bunch of other goodies. So anyway, so I want to talk now, and this is where the value of having guys like JC and River who were down there today, having them on the show is so helpful. There's intriguing position battles coming into camp, and I want to know who is running with the ones. And the first one, I mean, it would not to be expected. Graham Barton was starting over Hainsey. That's not a surprise. But I want to know in the like shell defensive drills, was there anyone between Tyke Smith and Christian Isian? Who did you guys see out there more occupying the nickel? JC, did you pick up on that? Did you have a chance?
Yeah, Tyke got the first goes with the ones, but they've been switching back and forth between series. So when they do the first team comes out there the first time, we saw Tyke. Then the second time it was Isian. Believe it or not, Tavier Thomas, who was running with like the second and third team, actually had some of the best plays of the day. He had the interception. He had another one that was close to being an interception. Good pass breakup. He looked really good. So the depth, I think the depth at the nickel corner position is like on lock, because Josh Hayes, who's working on the outside now this season, he was working with the second team across from Bryce Hall, who should have came up with an interception. I don't know how he missed the ball that was headed toward Otten, but Otten came down with great concentration to make the catch. But even he can play nickel. So like the thing that the Bucs realized that nickel was a spot they wanted to get better at, not just that, but with depth, because we saw when, they had Zion McCollum playing there, when they needed Isian to pop up at safety, because Ryan Neal was dog water. And they built that depth there with Isian, with Tyke, with Tavier, all those guys getting cross-trained at safety, with Josh Hayes, who can pump in there. And obviously, if you needed to in like a dire emergency, Zion McCollum could pop in there too. But we're going to continue to see these guys rotate. Pads come on Monday. We'll learn more from that position as well. Once they can start hitting and the blitzing and stuff starts to become, a little bit more live than what it was today.
And I just assume every question is you, JC, in the presser, because you're super good at it. But I don't know if it was you who asked about Tyke Smith. Might have been someone else. But Antoine Winfield Jr. was quick to praise him, saying he's smart, he's cerebral, he knows his stuff, he plays physical, he plays hard, and he has a great mentality towards the game, which I love. Strong words. I mean, you're asked about a player, you're not going to start ripping on him or say he's not ready. So I also can understand the context here, but still seemed like pretty strong words. Have you gotten a look from your own eyes as to whether or not he's fitting in out there, River? How does Tyke look?
He looks good. Like JC said, the depth at nickel is pretty impressive, and I think it's also pretty impressive just how much this rookie class is getting praised. We talked about Tyke Smith back there, but Mike Evans has some really good words for Jalen McMillan as well. And talking about Tyke, Todd Bowles has mentioned that the system he played in Georgia is not super dissimilar, kind of the system here in Tampa Bay. So definitely doesn't have as much of a roadblock getting into it as maybe some other defensive backs will. So if Tyke is a starter at nickel, then you've drafted a good replacement and you have a really impressive depth. We talked about how impressive Christian Isian is in certain aspects of his game, and how, to hit for him to not be on the field with some of the things that he does is means that your position is in good strength. So definitely going to be exciting to see how that competition goes. I do think Tyke is probably going to take it, but we'll see how it goes from there. Tavier Thomas making some really good plays as well. Really impressive position, and very impressed with the young players in this Bucs roster across the board. Credit to Jason Light, obviously. And again, like you said, it's early. It could not be earlier, but
in the best shape of their lives, though.
Best shape of their life season. But it's looking like there's some really strong young players even outside of the rookies. And that's really something to applaud when it comes to being a GM and bringing those players in there. So excited to see how that goes.
So lots of depth in the nickel, just not so much on the outside. And also, that was what we talked about last show. So, but it's interesting because you got some
good though.
Sorry?
Tyreek Thunderbrook, he looked good out there. He wasn't beat badly. He didn't make any plays on the ball like we've come accustomed to from OTAs, but he looked good, sound in his coverage when he was out there. So I think that's going to be a really fun battle to watch, because Josh Hayes he's obviously learning a new position, but led the NFL in special teams tackles. So again, I mentioned this on my podcast, the roster construction, those last 4 to 5 spots, if you don't watch kickoff return, now is the time to really dial into it. And we'll be bringing you, as they didn't do any today, but when they do, me and River will bring in, and Caleb, when he's there, will be bringing you that coverage, because that's going to determine so much of who makes this team. What body types? Do they keep a 6th, 7th receiver? Do they keep that 6th edge rusher, that 5th linebacker, 4 tight end? You know, those body types are the types you're going to probably want more. So much interesting to see how that all shapes out once we start seeing those go live.
And that'll be fun too, because across the league, different teams are experimenting with different methods to approach this.
Right.
So
2 returners, 1 returner. Do you have 10
exactly.
guys?
So where the Bucs go this year, and then maybe where they go next year, where the league goes this year and then next year, could be pretty interesting. A lot of fun. So this will be a fun year for roster construction in general.
It's a copycat league, and that's a great point you bring up there, River. Like, I'm putting my money on Andy Reid to like come up with the model, or Sean McVay, the model that's emulated. You know, maybe Shanahan, some of those really forward-thinking offensive minds. And then JC, you jumped out and answered the question that we don't really have any intel in regards to the kick return game. But shout out to Windy V3, was watching on Twitter, well, formerly known as Twitter X. He asked about that. So thank you for.
Oh yeah, I mean Jake Camarda can boom it. First year we don't have to watch field goal reps, which has been nice.
Was fun last year. That was fun. You have Blankenship and McLaw. You were counting them off. Yeah,
bro. I was a Jose Borregales stand on the 2 years he was here. I'm like, he's taking suck up spot. Watch. So I agree with you. Chase did make most of them. He missed one right to the left side. I actually went out to the parking lot by my car. I was kind of mad. I was like, oh, by the car. I don't know where it went. But no, he's going to be fine. Chase improved so much in the areas that he had shortcomings, and obviously his deep game was amazing. Only missed 2 field goals all season. 1 was blocked. They're in a great shape. The biggest competition here is not even kicker or punter. It is the competition of long snapper. Evan Deckers versus Zach Charter, the wily veteran, versus a young second-year player from Duke, Forenzo Graham Barton, who will emerge victorious. The Bucs want to save $300,000 and break up the continuity of the unit, or do they want to get younger? Stay tuned.
My money's on J.C. Allen's son, because word coming out of Rashad White's camp is that kid can snap it. So
he can snap.
Never know.
Get knocked over a little bit, but snap. If they imply the rules in Pop Warner where he can't get touched unless he touches someone, I can get him in there snapping, no problem.
Also, shout out to Noel Game Day checking in on YouTube, saying, the boys, we see you, Noel Game Day. I love how you make a point, our producer in the back, of pulling that up every time River talks. That's very convenient, River being a Florida Gator guy. The subtle. And I know lots of our viewers, anyone tuning in here, are also big Florida State Seminoles fans. So make sure, well, I'm sure you already are, but if not, make sure you're checking out Noel Game Day for all
I'd like to very briefly call out college football 25 playing as the Gators. I see some leftover right Gator chomps, and that's unacceptable. EA in the crowd, you gotta, it's right over left always, and I demand that be fixed in a new patch, or I'm not gonna play ever again.
See, I thought he was talking about the show. The finale was amazing last week. Can't wait for the next season.
Man, there's some good TV shows out there, but not as good as the battle we will be witnessing between Jalen McMillan and Trey Palmer for the wide receiver 3 position. What do we see out there today, boys? We've been talking about this one a lot. Caleb, I hate to keep you on the sidelines here, but we got to talk to these boys who are down there with their eyes. So just sit back and enjoy the show. JC.
Hey, let them run with it, and I'll just chime in with any fun stuff.
Love it.
JC. I think, and again, I had Liam on, and he mentioned kind of what I think is going to be the situation. It's going to be game by game, play by play, series by series on who they use. When you look at Jalen, he's just so smooth when he runs the ball. And that was on display today. And, he just finds the empty spot on the field, whether it's in zone or in coverage or coming across the middle. He just has his knack for being able to find a spot where the ball can get to him from the quarterback. And he does everything, looks effortless. It looks so smooth. As Mike Evans said, super polished as a rookie. He's extremely smart, and that jumps out. But then you get a play like, Trey Palmer today, where he catches the ball and turns on the jets, and he's gone. Like, there's no catching this guy because he's got that 4.33 speed. So, I think this battle will have a winner per se of who's on the top of the depth chart. But again, it's going to rotate week to week, game to game, play by play, series by series. What do they need out there? Are they playing a team that's heavy zone? Okay, Jalen McMillan's going to eat them up. Are they playing a team that plays heavy man? If you don't have a corner that can stick with Trey Palmer, he's going to tear you apart. He's going to get behind you and open everything up for the defense, bringing that safety back with them because they need to. So there's going to be like, I think by the end of the year, you'll have one that leads in receptions and maybe touchdowns and yards. But it's not going to be by much. I think both of these guys are going to get plays. They both looked impressive at camp today. You can see that Trey Palmer has put on a little extra, I don't want to say like weight, but like he looks more NFL ready, more NFL built with an offseason strength and conditioning program. And I think that's going to lead to him having a big season. For the both of them, it's consistency. We'll have to see if they can stack days. That's the theme of training camp every year, stack days. Can you continue to stack days? And it's day one. They both look pretty good. We'll see how they can stack, going forward.
Stack those days. Eventually you get to stack your paper, as some of these Buccaneers veterans learned this offseason. We got a inquiry on YouTube about Sterling Shepard, River. Did you see Sterling Shepard out there? And if so, did you see anything worth mentioning?
We did. He was playing with the 2s or the 3s, right, JC?
Yes.
To my knowledge. Didn't see anything particularly notable from Sterling Shepard, but he's putting his head down and putting in the work. And, it'll be interesting to see if he makes the roster. I believe, JC, you had him as a practice squad guy in your 53 production, just like David Moore was last year. I'm not sure that's going to be explicitly the case because him and Baker obviously have a little bit of a rapport. So it'll be interesting to see in training camp going forward if that continues or if he ends up kind of sneaking in there to some other drills. But definitely something to watch. And as far as we know so far, that's what he's been doing. That's where he's been at.
Trask threw a high ball, but he got his fingers on it, right? If you're a wide receiver, you get your hand on it, you got to come down with it.
Yeah.
And it was his fingers that went off of Trask's first interception to Tavir Thomas. So, the reason I kept him off is because he's not a special teams guy. And if you're going to be the 5th, 6th wide receiver, you got to play teams for the most part. But again, the way he sneaks on, let's say they go with more bigger bodies. They don't need receivers running down there or whatever like that. Then maybe he's the guy that sneaks on as a 6th, 5th, 6th wide receiver that doesn't need to play special teams because of the way the roster is constructed. So he definitely needs to stack days. I didn't have any splash plays. I was on the opposite end of one, but we'll see. It's early. He's in the best shape of his life, though.
That's what they say. Yeah.
No one says that about me, but I feel like we're here.
Colin, you're in the best shape of your life right now.
But we
sources are saying. Sources are saying.
Yeah. Sources north of the border. Report.
Yeah. CFL Insider. How about the left guard spot? I mean, as minicamp was going on, we've been monitoring this closely. All indications are to likely be one of the 2 free agent veterans, Ben Bredesen or Sua Opeta, who Jason Light brought over. That's no surprise. I was thinking it might be Sua Opeta based off of nothing other than my own prediction. But then as minicamp wore on, it seemed like Bredesen was getting the bulk of those snaps. And now here we are, first day of training camp. And if my memory serves me correctly, was Ben Bredesen running with the ones today? Whoever wants to.
For the most part, I believe he was. I know they had in warm-ups, Opeta was occasionally in with the first line, but I think it was mostly Bredesen for the rest of the day, right?
They've rotated. Same thing,
yeah.
So that's what they're going to be doing, drives like that. Receivers a little easier because you can get multiple plays on a drive, but that's going to be a rotation spot. Center is going to be a rotation spot. But Bucks Capital asked about Graham Barton. He started the first starting lineup that was out there was Bredesen and Barton with the rest of the continuity. The next drive, it was Hainsey and Opeta. Then it was a combination. I mean, they're going to be doing all these combinations.
Especially waiting for pads to come on, because when it comes to linemen, that's the big one. So
right. And I feel like a broken record and say self-promoting, but I had Liam on last week, and he pretty much said by Cincinnati game is where they want to have that. So that's about 2 weeks from now. Pads come on Monday, so kind of gives you a timeline. They'll go further than that, but we should know in 2 weeks who's going to win that competition at left guard and center so they can start to build continuity. But pads are going to be crucial for that. Both of these guys are smart. I think Bredesen gets the edge right now just because he's a little bit better in that zone system, having run it before. He's a little bit quicker as well, and you're going to need your guards to pull, climb the second level, all these different things. Opita's stronger, but it's also going to come down who's the better run blocker, I think. And that's something that Cohen told me the other day, like who's the better run blocker is likely going to win that position. You got to be good at pass, but you can't be a liability there. But whoever's the better run blocker will likely win that position. So pads are instrumental in finding out who's going to be this. Barton's fumbled snap, Bucks Capital. Yeah, that was with Trask. So who's to blame? I don't know. Trask had a bad day. I'll put it on him.
Yeah, it was Trask's fault. Sorry,
he had
River.
a bad day.
The Gator hate is getting to crazy levels here.
River, he had a bad day. He had a bad day.
Taking one down? Yeah.
Oh, there's no game day again. Saying hi for anyone who's not watching. Okay. Now I want to open it up a little bit to any general observations or thoughts regarding what you saw today, guys. Like apparently Mike Evans looks good. Did he look good on the field? And again, I get it. We're gonna need to stack a few more practices here before we can offer some real opinion. So I totally get that. But why don't we go to you, JC, and you tell us maybe something that you noticed today that kind of jumped out at you that we haven't touched on so far?
Yeah, I think Evans looked great. I mean, general observation, he had an amazing catch on third down from Baker Mayfield. Zion McCollum was in coverage, and the coverage was perfect. He was right in his hip. There was nothing he could do to make that play because Baker threw such a perfectly placed ball on the sideline. And then he had another play where, again, height wins out. Jamel Dean was in coverage, and Baker just Evans just climbed the ladder from Baker's pass and reeled it in. So Evans and that connection look really strong already. Him and Godwin look really strong too. You can tell that there's going to be a lot of over the middle stuff to Godwin back 2019. I think Evans said he looked like he's in 2019 form. So I think with Baker and Chris and Mike, I think you're on the money there. The other thing that really stood out to me was the linebackers, and River wrote about this in his takeaways, but they were getting after. They were getting after today. And I get there's no pads, and even Bull said, I'm not going to crown anybody. The offensive linemen have nothing to hold on to, but I counted at least 4 or 5 would-be sacks. Anthony Nelson came screaming around the corner and just would have annihilated the quarterback, unpicked up. Chris Braswell had really good pressures, probably would have had a sack. Yaya Diaby and JTS were in the backfield constantly. Logan Hall was in the backfield. There was one play where Golston and CJ Brewer collapsed the middle of the pocket, and Trask scrambled for 15 yards, but he would have been annihilated there. So like consistent pressure from the defensive line and the edge linebackers. And then Chase Edmonds really stood out to me too. His burst is very impressive. He had one play. Running backs, it's kind of hard to judge because no one you tag down. That's why Bucky's going to be. It's going to be better to see him when pads come on because he's known for making guys miss and breaking through tackles. But Chase, man, he had the play before. He had a nice run up the middle for about 15 yards, which would have been, to my eyes, a real run up the middle for 15 yards. Line did a good job. He burst through the hole quickly, and it wasn't one of those, well, if it was pads on, we'll see what happens. That was a really nice run by him. But the play before, KJ Britt came on the left side, coming on a linebacker blitz. I asked him about it in the press conference, told him that he read the play and read the quarterback. But Antoine Winfield looped around from the right side, and Chase moved over and picked him up in pass protection. And if he had missed or misplaced hands or technique or anything like that, he's going down. So he really impressed me today too.
See, folks, that's why you got to stick with Bucs Game Day, because there's been a lot of content flowing throughout the Buckus sphere, I'll call it, and I didn't hear one word about Chase Edmonds until right now. So again, that's why it's so valuable. Make sure you're sticking with Bucs Game Day. As JC mentioned, we got like 9 articles out just from today, right? Yeah. So I mean, we're staying real busy.
The hopper tomorrow, right, River? 3, 4.
You'll just have to go to Bucs Game Day and find out. I think
ready for you in the morning.
If you're ever curious, is it 3? Is it 4? Tomorrow a.m. Go to Bucs Game Day.
Well, what I want to find out, River, is if anything jumped out at you. You may have had a different vantage point than JC. It could be something we already talked about, but you did this takeaways piece or observations piece today. What were some of your big ones coming out of day one of training camp?
JC really nailed the pressure from defensive line, outside linebackers, stuff like that. I believe Will Golston and CJ Brewer also had a nice little play where they both kind of closed in on John Wolford, and that probably would have been a sack as well. But he mentioned Braswell, he mentioned Diaby, he mentioned a lot of guys definitely getting some good pressure to start off camp. And when KJ Britt talks about how fast the team is playing, that's definitely some concrete evidence of how fast it's playing. So that was definitely the biggest thing that stood out to me, I think. And it was pretty impressive getting to see that. And hopefully that's something that can continue, because that edge rushing rotation really needs that sort of kickstart. And Diaby in year 2, guys like Braswell picking up Todd defense. That's going to be a big thing going forward. Yeah, I mentioned I thought Trask and Wolford were a little shaky at times. Baker Mayfield played pretty well. He had that throw to Mike Evans that we talked about, and Mike Evans, timeless, had that catch in the sideline, and then he had a nice catch on a play that probably would have been a sack from Joe Tryon-Shoyinka if the play had been a play. But he had a nice catch of the middle to Evans on a ball from Baker Mayfield. So he still looks really good. Best shape of his life, you could say. But he really does look smooth. And you'd think you'd be able to tell if some things were slowing down, and you can't. He looks like the Mike Evans that we know and love, and he's going into year 11. Caleb, I know you wrote an article about that coming up, basically from where he started to where he is now, how long he's been in the league, the records he has the chance to break, and he looks like he's just out there playing football like he always has, which is extremely impressive. So that's fun.
I'm telling Gator Nation you said the Trask looked bad.
Listen, guys. That was a few years ago. Okay, he's a Buccaneer now. I have to tell him like it is. But a little shaky.
There was it was cool to see Antoine Winfield Jr. One of the first questions he was asked during his presser after practice was about what it was like to be with Jordan Whitehead again, and he offered.
That was River.
Oh, that was you, River. Okay, there you go. You deserve a shout out if I'm giving them to JC. So good on you. Good question. And I mean, I don't like. We got a question here from Bryce Pat 98 watching on YouTube, and appreciate the questions, Bryce. And that was, how did Whitehead look? And I know it's, again, one day Whitehead's a jacked up dude. He's coming into camp shape, but it seems like he's really eager to be back, and the guys are eager. The guys are eager to have him. Yeah, he's a thumper too. He uses that muscle he's got on the field, as we all know.
He is. Interesting note on Whitehead. He was playing real close to the ball today. He was pressing up on some guys. I think they had him in on some blitz packages, right, JC? So that's fun. And a thumper, like you said, he's got the sleeves rolled up in training camp, and when someone does that, they're for real. So interesting packages that he's in. Excited to see how Bowles utilizes him again, because they've, Whitehead left after 2020. They've been trying to replace him for a few years, and now they just decided, let's just get Whitehead again. So like to see the looks that he had in training camp today, a little aggressive, and I think for a player like Whitehead, that's the perfect way to use him.
First thing I did when I saw Whitehead, I was like, this guy is yoked.
Yeah,
yoked up. Marquise Watts was out there with a half shirt and
sleeves. The aura was crazy.
Oh, it was crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was nuts.
So
Bucks Capital on YouTube asked, do you think that the regression of Wolford Trask was because of the departure of DC for Dave Canales? I'm just going to say, first off, it is not fair to label one questionable.
It's been one day. Yeah.
It's one day.
We cannot categorize it as a regression. That being said, them having a bad day, sure. I mean, they are picking up a new offense. That could partially be to blame, but it'll take a lot more practices before we can determine if, first off, there's a regression, and before we start trying to diagnose what the cause of said regression is. So
I think for Wolford too, he throws such a catchable ball, but the offensive line, the depth on the defensive side, especially at edge, versus the depth on the offensive line, when you're looking at Luke Haggard, and like Avery Johnson and Xavier Delgado and Lawrence Metz blocking for you. And you've got guys like Marquise Watts, Chris Braswell, and Jose Ramirez coming. It's a little bit different, leans a little bit more favor towards the defense, especially with all the depth that they have there in the secondary and on the offensive line and stuff.
And KJ Britt, there was a lot of talk about KJ Britt today. And I mean, he talked himself and he had some really interesting comments about, you know, what did he say? My expectation is for us to be the best defense in the league. I mean, that's what we're working for. We've got all the pieces, we've got all the people, and we've got the want to. So we're going to go out there every day and make sure we're doing our thing. I mean, Todd Bowles talked ad nauseum about just how much of a leader he's been even before he was on the field. We got our first taste of seeing what he can bring to the table in a limited role last year as the team ultimately phased Devin White out. Hearing a different voice coming from that position is nice, right? Let's be real about that. I mean, Devin White, there was a lot of distractions associated with him. And then Antoine Winfield, sorry, I'm just going to kind of wrap everything up about KJ Britt. And then Antoine Winfield let us know that KJ Britt is like the biggest smack talker in the building. Todd Bowles let us know. Antoine Winfield confirmed it, saying if there was ever a fight, he would think that KJ Britt would be involved. So, you know, Caleb, how about I'm gonna throw this to you because we haven't gotten to hear from you for a little bit. But like last year, what did you think of what the glimpses you saw of KJ Britt? And do you think he's up to the task? Is he going to be an average or above average inside linebacker in the NFL this year?
I mean, he looked good last year, you know, in those sparing moments towards the end of the year, it wasn't sparing. It was, you know, you saw KJ Britt for majority of the snaps, you know, at that linebacker position. But guy can move at the weight he's at, just big guy, knows how to play sideline to sideline in between the hashes as well, knows how to come down, can cover, maybe not as good in coverage as, you know, potentially early Devin White before that kind of slid off. But I think he's a great guy to fill that role. You know, you don't come with a name, you don't come with a high draft pick, you don't have all these expectations thrown on you to where, hey, like you've got to perform up to this level because you are, you know, a first round draft pick or because you do have this name. So, you know, you're KJ Britt, like you can play your game. And as long as it matches what Todd Bowles wants to do on his defense, you're going to be successful because Bowles is going to put him in a successful spot to do that. So I think him filling in there, coming in, we saw it last year. He was able to do it, you know, off the cuff at that point. Now he's had this whole offseason to prepare for becoming a starter at the linebacker position, getting comfortable playing next to Levante and the other linebacker as well. So I think he's going to fit into that defense very well. He did it last year again. And then now you're seeing those leadership qualities kind of come out a little bit more. Everybody usually, you know, we play football. We've all played the game of football or we've all played some sort of sport. There's always that, you know, you got to take those levels or those steps to becoming, you know, more of a vocal leader. Now he's able to be in that position and he can start barking a little bit more. You got another dog there in the linebacker room, and that's all you can ask for, trying to turn around this defense from a team that couldn't get pressure and couldn't turn the ball over into one that can get pressure and can turn the ball over. I think a guy like KJ Britt is exactly what you want. Not looking for the glory per se, but, you know, wants to just make an impact where that defense can be successful in return to what we know it can be.
I will just say one thing on Britt is I've spoken to him before. I mean, this dude is all football all the time. He goes and hunts rabbits a little bit here and there and spends time with his daughter and his family, but he's watching tape consistently, working out consistently. And he mentioned it today, you know, the amount of tape that he watches allows him to play so much faster. We talked to Zion McCullum on this podcast earlier about how he has a better understanding of the game so he can utilize his speed as a tool, not necessarily as a crutch. With Britt, he watches so much film and knows what's going on and trusts his instincts that he's going to be, that he's at places before, you know, he's recognizing things and he's there. So it looks like he's playing much faster than he is because he knows what's coming. He does that much film work, that much study. So I think that's going to lead him to having a really successful season this year. And again, he's that old school linebacker, that thumper linebacker. Does he stand for all 3 downs? That's something I think is the biggest story with KJ Britt. Is he a 3-down linebacker at that spot? We know he's going to do it for 2 downs. There's Servassier Dennis, who Bowles mentioned has some packages for him. Is he coming on 3rd downs when it's coverage situation? So that's going to be something to watch. But I think Britt, I wouldn't be surprised if Britt was a captain this season.
Wow. Servassier Dennis, more of like a coverage specialist. So what you're saying makes perfect sense in terms of if you develop a little bit. Sorry?
Built in that Levante mold. He's more of like a Levante replacement than a.
For sure. And then speaking of which, like you're talking about, him doing his homework, KJ Britt, you got to think a lot of that comes from playing with Levante David, man. Like what an underrated aspect of having one of the greatest linebackers of the past decade plus quietly going about his business every day. So anyway, I think we've hit on a lot of valuable stuff, ton of observations, talked about a bunch of quotes that came out today after day 1. And that's right. It was only day 1 of training camp. I can't imagine how much more content is going to be flowing over this next couple weeks here. So make sure you stay dialed, folks. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, you see our Twitter handles there. Please feel free to shoot us a follow if you want to hear what we got to say on that. And until next week, I am Colin Hallboom, representing my pals here at BucsGameday, bringing you the best content in the business, covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers 365 days a year. Training camp day 2 starts tomorrow. We'll talk to you next week. Be well, go Bucs.